Hi, welcome to episode 12 of The Benefits of Being an Octopus by Anne Braden. Okay, Google, set a timer for 15 minutes.
15 minutes, starting now.
We're picking up on page 136. Why are you even at school then? She glares at me. I'm on my way to the nurse to make sure she has my inhaler like I'm supposed to. And what's wrong with you? I shake my head. Maybe the inhaler will help, I mutter. Because you need loads of help. Fuchsia snorts as she pushes herself back up. Yeah, right. She starts heading for the nurse. Thanks for the support, she calls. When I was 5, we rented a room in a house with chickens in the backyard. And entering homeroom is like walking through that flock of chickens as they pecked all over the place to get every possible bit of corn. Except instead of corn, it's any bit of detail or rumor or possibility of what might have happened yesterday afternoon in the parking lot. Mr. Bontaff is nowhere to be seen. Brendan Farley is pacing around in front of the room. It was 3 separate shots, and one of those bullets went right by my head. I swear I heard it zing by me. Where were they coming from? Matt is leaning up against the whiteboard. They didn't say on the news report last night. Did you see the gun? Brendan doesn't stop pacing. No, but there were plenty of places someone could have been hiding in the parking lot. Who else was there? Calvin Umbador asks. There was a car whose windows got shot out, but I don't know whose it was. It drove away as soon as it happened, and I don't blame them. Brendan stops his pacing. You know who I think was the shooter? Calvin looks up. Who? I try to make my way to a seat in the back. Brendan's voice is loud enough for the whole room to hear. Silas Fletcher. I freeze. I mean, he never talks, right? Brendan continues. He could totally be one of those mass murderers that you hear about when they interview the neighbors and they're like, oh, he was always so quiet. Never thought he'd do something like this. So being quiet is suddenly the same as being a school shooter? And, Brendan says, it was just a couple of weeks ago that he got in trouble for having a gun in the parking lot. And right in that very same corner of the parking lot. I mean, it's obvious. Because he was going hunting for bobcats, where you're supposed to be quiet. Calvin is on his feet. You know, he's always been weird. I don't trust him at all. Matt is leaning against the whiteboard, silent. At least he's not jumping on board like Calvin is. But then he slowly nods his head. I can totally see him turning on someone out of the blue like that. What is wrong with these people? Doesn't Brendan remember that it was right after he teased Silas for crying in 5th grade that Silas stopped talking? I was there, and it was obvious. Doesn't he get it that if someone lines up people to place bets on your time to cry, you might decide to zip your real self up and not come out again? And just because he yanked that zipper up doesn't mean that 3 years later he's going to turn around and start shooting at people, even if they're the people who bullied him before. Right? I mean, he was all weird and mute this morning, but that doesn't mean anything. Right? All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a seat. I turn to see Mr. Bontaff in the doorway. We have something we need to talk about. I hustle to a seat in the back and keep my head down. If Mr. Bontaff is about to say that Silas Fletcher was the shooter yesterday, I don't want to see him do it. Maybe I can block my ears and pretend nothing happened at all. You may or may not be aware of the events that occurred in the parking lot yesterday afternoon, begins Mr. Bontaff, who then proceeds to tell us even less than we already know. To make things worse, he encourages people who may know something about the event to come forward and speak with the administration, and says that your identity will be protected if you do. Brendan already has his hand up. He might as well be holding a torch in one hand and a pitchfork in the other. The whole rest of the school day is like that. By lunchtime, the entire 7th grade class is obsessed with the idea that Silas was the shooter. Even the girls at the lunch table are talking about it. And they're nothing like Brendan Farley and Matt Hubbard, who always act like they know what's going on. They tuck their heads and don't get involved. Like when those public hearings about guns happened last year, their families were nowhere to be seen, even though they were the ones that probably should have been right in the middle of it, since their families hunt and they aren't terrified of guns like some of the other kids. By the first period after lunch, nobody even has to be convinced anymore. They've all moved on to talking about when he's going to get called down to the principal's office or making plans for how they'll take him down if he tries to go all Call of Duty on them. I heard that a couple of girls started crying and refused to be in the same room as Silas during English class. The only part of the day that's about something different is when Ms. Rochambeau pulls me aside after social studies. I want to make sure you're still planning to go to tomorrow's debate club, she says. I've been going for the past week, haven't I? She keeps on talking. And this time, I want you to come ready to speak up. I think your viewpoint is going to be particularly valuable. I swallow. Speaking up is a different story. The next day, most of the debate club kids are already in their seats when I ease myself into the chair next to Lydia, who's back to drawing cats. Matt is leaning over another table, but when Ms. Rochambeau calls everyone to attention, he quickly takes his seat. As you know, we ran out of time on Monday, and we weren't able to vote on a topic, she says. I've decided to choose it myself, but I think you'll agree we don't have any other option. She turns to write on the board. Resolved. The right to own a gun is part of what it means to be an American. No one says anything at first. Not even the 8th grade boy who had 50 different ideas for a topic 2 days ago. Lydia has stopped drawing cats. I can sure argue against that, but we'll have to be able to argue for that too. Ms. Rochambeau crosses her arms. That is the point. No one says much as Ms. Rochambeau points to a list of websites up on the board. These will have relevant statistics and ideas for talking points to help get you started. You'll be working in your table groups to prepare, and then tomorrow I'll be selecting one person from each table to take part in our mock debate. There are 3 laptops at our table already, and Matt pulls one of them over toward him. I'll check out the Center for Disease Control first. You guys should start with the others so we can share notes. I'm still frozen in place from Ms. Rochambeau's words. She wouldn't choose me to be in the mock debate, would she? I sneak a peek at her, leaning over one of the 8th grade boys' notebooks and pointing out a few gaps in the logic here. She totally would. I look around, starting to panic. Lydia has pushed a laptop over to me, and I open it, but I can feel my octopus skin turning all agitated and red. I quickly type in the web address for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms that's listed on the board. Oh my gosh, Matt says, staring at his screen. Look at how many more people die because of guns in the US compared to the rest of the world. It's like we're living in a war zone. I try to stay in control of my breathing. I peer over at his screen. There's a bunch of bar graphs, but I don't want to take the time to figure out what each bar means because I just want to say, oh yeah, you're so right. And I do. Matt nods and starts writing things in his notebook. I found my way to the firearms frequently asked questions part of the site, but it's 10 pages long, is super duper detailed about stuff I've never heard of, and doesn't have any cool graphs like Matt found. But Matt is copying stuff down in his notebook like a madman, so I quicken FAQ at random and just start copying its answer down. At least I'll have something. I do my best to ignore the fact that my leg is starting to go all jittery. I'm halfway through writing out the question, is there a way for a prohibited person to restore his or her right to receive or possess firearms or ammunition? When Lydia interrupts. I mean, this whole thing is ridiculous, she explodes. Look at the pictures of these kids who've been killed. If we'd been in that parking lot at the wrong time, we could have been pictures on this website. It could have been our parents talking about how we were always being kind to other people and worked hard and all that. I can't believe we're going to have to argue both sides of this. No one should have guns. Is she serious? What about the nice girls at the lunch table whose families hunt? Yeah, Matt says, copying one of the bar graphs into his notebook. It's like arguing both sides of a resolution about how puppies should or shouldn't be put to death. One side is right and the other is evil. I sit on my hand because it started to shake too. Lydia rubs her forehead. I just don't get why when it comes to guns, our country is like, oh, yeah, take that thing that's used to kill people and do whatever you want with it. Well, except for the laws against murder and stuff, I blurt out. Lydia doesn't take her eyes off her laptop screen. Come on, if people didn't have guns in the first place, we'd be way better off. I loved going hunting. Would Silas be better off if his family didn't have guns? He wouldn't be in this mess, but then he wouldn't get to go bobcat hunting with his dad either. And if someone is going to be miserable every day at school, every school day, they shouldn't have to lose the one thing that makes them happy. Lydia. She probably wants me to keep my mouth shut. But isn't the whole point of debate club to argue? Ms. Rochambeau even told me to speak up, right? I touch my shoulder to be close to my octopus tattoo and imagine my tentacles reaching out to cover Lydia's notebook and suck up some of its confidence. I take a deep breath. Except most people with guns aren't using them to kill people, I say. Don't you think it's a little drastic to... Lydia snaps at me. Are you for real? Drastic? Don't you think it's a little drastic for people to die because of guns? I feel my mouth drop open, but before I have time to think of anything to say in response, anything about responsible gun owners or about how the deer population would be through the roof if it wasn't for hunters, Lydia's eyes fall on my camo jacket that's lying next to my chair. Her lips purse and her face goes stiff. Oh, I get it, she says slowly. You're one of them. One of them? One of who? Then suddenly those words, your viewpoint is going to be particularly valuable, take on a whole new meaning. I'm supposed to be the evil one. And maybe I am. Maybe Silas is too. Maybe he really did shoot at someone in the parking lot, and I'm the one who told him he better keep hunting. I look at Matt, but he isn't paying any attention. Instead, he's busy copying down something from the computer. 7 kids killed by guns in this country every single day, he's muttering. I might be able to find some bizarre way to argue for this resolution if I have to, but he stares at what he's just written. Anyone who really agrees with it is either as dumb as a rock or a straight up monster. Right. I kick my camo jacket farther under my chair. So, dumb rock or monster? It's good to know I have options. Chapter 17. I'm too angry to talk to Ms. Rochambeau during the ride to Bryce and Aurora's bus stop. Of all issues to pick, did it really have to be this one? Where's our innocent discussion about the effectiveness of speed limits? Where are the pie eating contests? Since my mom doesn't work today because of Hector's 9-month checkup at the doctor, Bryce and Aurora are getting off at the bus stop near the entrance of the trailer park, and I have Ms. Rochambeau stop there. Right here? She says, looking around. I see. She trails off, and before she can hide it, I see the pity on her face. And those are the trailers with nice potted plants and decorative walkway lights that she's looking at. I get out of the car as quickly as I can and mumble thanks as I go, but she doesn't drive away. She's still sitting there parked on the side of the road when Bryce and Aurora's bus pulls up. She's not looking down at her phone either. She's watching. Maybe not in a judgy way, but why wouldn't it be? I can feel her eyes on us as Bryce and then Aurora start spilling down the bus steps. Suddenly, all I can see is their gray-tinged clothes that smell like Frank's cigarette smoke and their ratty hair that never got combed this morning. If the other kids at their school haven't yet decided that they must either be dumb as a rock or a monster, then it's just a matter of time. As soon as Bryce hits the ground, he starts kicking at ice chunks. Kick. An ice chunk goes spinning into the bus's wheel. Kick. An ice chunk sails into the street. Kick. Come on, Bryce. You need to be on the sidewalk. I help Aurora jump down off the last step of the bus, and she suctions herself onto me. Future Octopus. Bryce is still on the edge of the road, kicking whatever he can. Bryce, come on. Kick, kick, kick. Ms. Rochambeau is still watching us. Let's go home and get you a snack. No! You've got to get out of the street. No! Okay, I get it. You had a bad day, but stupid! I pry Aurora off my leg, but since we don't have Hector with us, that means she instantly wants to be picked up. I hoist her onto my hip and start walking away from the trailer park. We're going to the Cumberland Farms, I call back to Bryce. You better come too if you want some easy cheese. I walk on without looking back, at least at first. When I peek half a minute later, Bryce is shuffling along behind us. Only then does Ms. Rochambeau finally drive away. Guess she's seen enough. Except that when she passes us, she does something I'm not expecting. She gives me a thumbs up. A thumbs up, which actually feels even better than easy cheese tastes. At Cumberland Farms, I slip the Easy Cheese can into my coat pocket when Aurora and Bryce are distracted by the frosted donuts near the hot dogs. Then I pick up a roll of toilet paper because we're almost out, and I pay the cashier for that. I don't want Bryce and Aurora to think you're not supposed to pay for things, unless you really can't. On the walk home from Cumberland Farms, Bryce is more like his normal self. He insists on holding Aurora's hand and helping her around a patch of black ice. He doesn't do it in a bossy way either. The anticipation of Easy Cheese creates its own miracles. And we'll stop there. Okay, Google. Stop. Hope you're enjoying the book. See you again tomorrow.